Welcome back for another video. So in today's video is going to be a little different. I was going to post a different video today, but in a comment someone left on one of my videos, they were asking for a little help on their pond setup since they just moved into the house or just got a pond or something like that. So in this video, basically I'm going to be addressing their concern or their issue, since I think it's better if I make a video. It'll be easier to explain or easier to show them what's up with their filter. So that's pretty much what I'll be doing in this video. Maybe you can take something from it as well. It is a fairly simple filter setup that they have, but for many it might be a little confusing, so that's what I'll be showing you in this video. Before I get into that, just to show you my pond, see it right here. Don't have as much fish as before, but it's still doing good. My plants are kind of dying down since it's cold. Well, basically the canna and then the taro over there, but otherwise everything's doing well. Don't feed them as much during the winter since it's cold. So I'll leave the person's comment right down here below so you can see what they asked. Basically, from their original comment, it was kind of confusing what they were asking. So I did ask them either to find someone locally to help them out, or if they post a video, I can see if I can help them out. And luckily, through the video, I am actually able to give them some assistance. So the first beginning of the video, I'm going to show a filter that is similar to the one they have, and then I'll go online and show their video and kind of the one that I found on Amazon and go through kind of the same thing, because it's fairly simple. Basically what they are is a pressurized filter with a built-in UV light, and similar concept, just different design. So that's pretty much what's going to be going on. To start off, I'll show you this filter right here. As I mentioned, it is different than the one she has on her pond itself, but it is similar in sense. It's the same style. These are pressurized filters with sponges inside of them. They have an in, an out, and then a backwash on them. So they typically have 3 of those in there. The one is coming from the pump to the filter itself. So many times people make a mistake, which is also what she made a mistake. This is actually not a pump, it's a filter. So your pump is going to be typically attached somewhere along the pipe going down to your pond, and then this is the filter mechanism. The reason you may think it's a pump is because it has this cord right here. This cord is actually going to a UV light up here, which I will unscrew and show you, but the purpose of that UV light is to keep the pond crystal clear. You will have to replace that bulb basically once a year kind of thing. It's fairly simple, at least on this one. I'll go through the other one, see if it is the same, but it's a similar concept. This one, it has a nice built-in backwash on it as well. So when you squeeze it, pull it up and down, it squeezes the sponges in there. On the one she has, I'm not sure if it has that mechanism. It does have the outflow where you can use the water to water the garden, which is perfect fertilizer. Otherwise, the issue that she was showing me was on her one. It was leaking around here. And the reviews I read on the one that she had, at least on Amazon, it says it was pretty common on that one. So it may be time to replace it. Otherwise, it is a fairly simple issue. What it is, typically they all have this ring that goes around here. That's basically to clamp it down. And then now you basically release that. And then I'll open it up with both hands, so I'll put the camera down. But otherwise, in here, I'll show you. So that was fairly simple to open. Sometimes on these filters, it does become hard to open because they kind of seal themselves. But since this one is not being used, it was very easy. But otherwise, on them, you have a top and a bottom. You can see the sponges right there. On this one, what I was mentioning earlier is the backwash system. These things go up and down and basically squeeze the sponges. But to address the issue, what basically prevents these from leaking from this area is this gasket in here. Can't take it out, but you see this rubber gasket going along here. That's basically the sealing mechanism for these filters. So maybe on her filter, what is happening is it is off-centered or something, or it possibly has a crack in it. Because how it works is once you stick this on, it basically squishes around there and then clamps that down, and it's supposed to seal. And if it's leaking from here, typically there's something wrong with that gasket itself. Either you need a new one, or it's off-centered, it's got a crack in it or something like that. If it's still leaking when you put a new one in, then it's just that filter design. I mean, it's not uncommon. The only other place that these typically leak will be from this backwash here, because inside here there's a gasket. So when you move this, that gasket moves back and forth. So typically what I like to actually put on here is a ball valve. And this is what a ball valve looks like. This is actually from a different pressurized filter. This one is a little different. It has its quick connects on it. So they'll have to do more to hook up a ball valve. But as I was mentioning, the purpose of this is so you can close this off like like so. So now it's closed, because over time what happens, even with more expensive filters, even like the one I have over there, which is a bigger filter, this gasket in here fails eventually. So by having this ball valve right here, it prevents it from leaking over time. The other place that these will typically leak is in this area, which I'll open up. There's a gasket around here as well, and typically what will happen is when you open and replace it, maybe many times people forget to put that gasket in there, or it falls off or something of the sort, or on the glass sleeve in there, they forget the gasket as well. But in terms of her issue, it is somewhere around here, which, as mentioned, is that gasket over there. If it still doesn't work by taking that gasket out and putting it back in, it could mean that you need a new gasket, or you need to replace the whole filter. Maybe something cracked somewhere else along here, which is causing it to leak. But that's typically that problem right there. So I'll open this up and show you how the inside of that looks. So we got that unscrewed. It's fairly simple on this one. I just got to take these 4 screws out and then pull this whole top off. Again, sometimes this is sealed tightly. You do want to be careful with this one though, because if you crack this glass sleeve right here, then water will get into the top part here, which is basically the mechanics or the electronics for this particular UV light. So that bulb does have to be replaced once a year. Even if it is on after a year, typically it's not emitting the right rays, or the UV rays, to break down the algae itself. But otherwise, in terms of the leaking, what I was talking about is right around here, there's this gasket, which basically seals around here. So if it's leaking from here, then that's most likely the case. People sometimes forget to put that gasket in there, or sometimes when they put it in there, in the thing itself, they crack this, which causes water to enter the whole thing, which isn't the best. Sometimes it can cause the thing to burn out or shorten, and then you have to basically replace the whole new transformer, which is pretty pricey. So either this is cracked, or they forget the gasket, and that's another reason why it leaks over there. So that's like pretty much on this part of the filter, that's the 3 main parts. Is you got that gasket there. They either cracked this glass sleeve, so you got to be careful. It is, I mean, decently strong, but if you chip it and get a crack in there, it'll get water in there. And then this part, if they don't put that properly in there, it doesn't seal it, and that will allow water to get into the electronics of the device itself. Just remember, in case you're watching this video for a different reason, have a filter similar to this, and you're testing it outside of the unit itself. So if you test it outside just like this and plug it in, it's not going to work when you just plug it in like this. That is because on these things, on most of these, they have a little thing right here, which pushes a sensor on the inside of this unit itself, because you don't want to look at this light. So when you plug it in just like it doesn't turn on. So if you're testing on the outside, you do have to stick a pen or something in there. So that doesn't mean, if you plug it in and it's not working, it doesn't mean it's not working. It just means you may have forgot to press that, or you did forget to press that if your unit has that kind of thing on it. As you can see, it just got a little thing that sticks up and pokes a little rubber sensor, or however it works in there, and then allows the light to go on. Again, as I mentioned, that is to protect your eyes from looking at the UV rays itself. This is not the best to look at. So that about sums up this example, showing you the similar concept on the one that I have here at my home. Again, as I mentioned, you have an in and out and a backwash. This is a filter, not a pump. The only thing that gets plugged in is the UV light on itself. You don't need to have this UV light plugged in to have this filter working. All you need is a pump in the water, which, as I mentioned, is going to be going on the one that says in. That pump is the mechanism that's pumping water to this, and then it goes over through the filter and back out to the pond itself. Just to address it again, on hers, the mechanism might be a little different in terms of the clamping, but hers is leaking because somewhere along in this thing is either cracked, or that gasket is out of place, or the gasket was forgot to put in, or one of those kind of things. So now that I showed you a similar example to the filter that she has, what I'll do now is basically record on my computer screen. Have to figure that out, and then I'll put her video on there that she showed me where it shows the leaking, plus I'll get a picture of the one that I found on Amazon, which I believe is the same one. So similar concept, as I said, different design, but basically the same thing. So I'll just go over that one, maybe help her understand it a little better. Otherwise, let's get to that. I'm not sure how this is going to go, but right now I'm going to be showing you the videos that she sent or posted on YouTube, and then I can address it. So here you can kind of see let's zoom in. So here you can see the filter itself. Play this video. Unfortunately, I can't zoom in. If I press this one right here, it turns off my screen recording, but otherwise you can see it's leaking from right here. And from what I can tell, that is from that clamped area. So on this filter, it's a little different than the one I showed earlier. But before I get into the pictures on this specific filter, here's the other video that she sent showing the filter itself. So here you can see it. So that cable is going to the UV unit itself right here. It looks like there's 2 screws that you have to unscrew to take it out, maybe more. These pipe that you see here, one is the in and one is the out. So one is going from the pump, which is in the water. The other one is going to the waterfall, which you'll see soon, a little later in the video. And then the other one, this one right here, I'm going to believe it's a backwash. So whatever this filter has, whatever it does, might be these mechanisms right here. You push those up and down, it will cause water to come out of here, which is basically for backwashing the filter and cleaning out the pond and so forth. So yeah, those tubes, and then the one goes to the waterfall you see over here. That's basically how it's set up. So the tubes on that filter, one goes from the pump, which is in the pond itself, and then the other one goes from, just goes to the filter. So that's the videos she sent. Otherwise, to make it a little more simpler, maybe better to understand, here's the pictures. I did find an Amazon link. I can post the Amazon link to the filter I showed before, plus this one in the description so you can check it out. But here's how the filter looks. You have your in right here. Well, one of these is in and out. I don't know which one. Let's say I had the filter itself. But you got the one in and the one out. So the one is going to be from a pump that's going to be in the water itself. And how that's going to work, I mean, a pump's a different mechanism. There's no moving parts in this one besides that UV fixture, which is this guy in the back right here. But you have the pump in the water, which is pumping the water into this filter. It goes through all the pads here and then back out one of these to the waterfall itself. And then, as I mentioned earlier, this is a backwash, which is going to be used to attach another hose to basically water all the plants and so forth. It's just a way to clean the filter itself and the pond itself. So judging just from how this looks, I'm going to guess these 2 gray knobs here that you can see the mouse going over, those I'm going to believe is what switches where the water is coming through on. So then in that case, I'm going to bet this one is the in from the pond, and then these are both outs. So when you push one of these down, it closes this off. So you push them down and pull them up or whatever, and it closes these 2 off, and the in is always going to be in. You don't close the in off, just always going to be going in. So that's how that picture looks right there. Oh, then to address where it's leaking. So this one's different than the one I was showing you earlier, or the one I have. This has clamps here that clamp over like that. The one I had a ring clamp that goes all the way around. So it could be that mechanism isn't the best, because as the reviews I read on this one on Amazon, it said people face that issue after 5 months or whatever of using it. So it could be unfixable. But otherwise, once you unclamp the 4 clamps I'm going to guess it has on there, you open that up, and then there should be a gasket in here which seals it off, and that's basically the waterproofing. So it could just be this mechanism of clamping it isn't the best, which is causing it not to put enough pressure on that gasket itself. Or as I mentioned in the earlier video when I showed the other filter, it could be that the gasket has a crack in it or some other issue involved, or maybe the gasket is not even in there. But that's how that filter looks. As I said, you got your in, which is the center one, which I'm gonna bet on. I'm not entirely sure since I don't have the filter, but based on how the backwash works, you got the in and the center one, and then these 2 out. These 2 on the side are the basically outputs. So you can use one as a backwash, or maybe it's not for a backwash. It's just giving you the option to have 2 different waterfalls or 2 different ways to go into the pond itself. So going back to this video, she was showing that her pond is it's frozen in here. You kind of make it out, and there's just splashing out. So you would want to bypass it, because you still want the water to be running during the winter, either with an aerator in there so the fish can have oxygen, because if it freezes over, there's no oxygen exchange, so you do need some of that. So either you want to hook up that filter itself, because if you don't have that filter running, it does kill all the beneficial bacteria that's accumulated in itself right there. So what you can either do is attach a hose on the other one and flip that one on, so you have water just running with a hose back into the top of the pond. Or it might be just best to get an aerator and stick that in the pond. What an aerator looks like is similar to like a cram, and it's basically one of these kind of things. Loads. So it's basically one of these units. That's an aerator. That's the unit itself to make in the air. You still need the air stones or the diffusers in the water. But what this does, as it churns the water and moves around the water in the pond itself, it allows oxygen exchange, because that specific area is not going to freeze over. There's also de-icers that you can get. That would be for her specific area, but you still want flowing water in the pond even during the winter, whether it's in that filter or just a separate unit itself. But that's what that guy is. But to get back to the, did I delete one of my pictures? Maybe. Alright, so get back to the filter. There's the brand. You can see, as I mentioned, I found it on Amazon. Here's just the same concept. I mean, you got your UV light in the back. You can't really make it out here. Well, here you got the cable, so you can see that cable is for the UV light. Judging from what it says on this unit itself, I think it's a 13 watt. But otherwise, in the filter itself, you have the sponges and then biomedia at the bottom. The sponges, main purpose for catching gunk, then the biomedia is for beneficial bacteria to attach to. And as you can see, yeah, it's got 5 clamps here actually. And then there should be in this area right here. You can kind of see, can't really make it out, but let's see, kind of zoom in. So right here, this is where that O-ring should be, which is basically waterproofing it. So maybe it fell out if she ever opened it, or the previous owner. You can kind of make out the O-ring there, but that's basically waterproofing it. As I said many times, these clamp ones don't work the best, or at least that kind of mechanism, so it might be unfixable. Because if you do seal it off, like with silicone, then you'll have to, I mean, every time you're going to redo it, you're going to have to redo the silicone. But basically that gasket is important there because that prevents it from leaking, which you were seeing earlier in this video right here. That it's, oh shoot, so I pressed the wrong thing. For some reason, if I press the expand here, it shuts off my screen recording. But anyways, as I mentioned, you can see that's where it's leaking from here, which is right that area right there, which is basically around here, which is due to the factor that either these aren't clamping properly, or there's no gasket in there, or the gasket's in there and it's put in wrong or something, which is causing it to leak. So that's basically what that issue is. So otherwise, I mean, that pretty much sums up all of that. It's just showing you how that filter should work. This is, so yeah, to mention again, this is a filter, not a pump. A pump would be something like one of these. You'll have something like this in the water, and that's like the motorized part that's pumping water to, from here it's pumping water to the filter itself. And the filter, the only thing this one has, as also seen in her video, kind of make it out right there, see that plug there? So there's a UV light in here. As I mentioned earlier when I was showing the other filter, that UV light prime purpose is for keeping the water crystal clear so you can see the fish. It kills a single self-floating algae. So that's pretty much that. That about sums up this portion of the video, just showing you the filter that she has. So hopefully this was able to help her out and show what she needs to do, or what she might need to do. If you can't get sealed off, it will be a pretty simple fix if you do buy a new one, because you already have the plumbing all hooked up. All you do is connect it to a new one, just like on the one I showed earlier, whatever it is. I'll show you. For example, they're called pressurized filters. They're simple filters to set up. I mean, there's many different ones. Like this one, there's different prices too. Like the nice thing about this one, it has a backwash on it. So like you can pull that handle up and down right where my mouse is on, and that will clean the sponges in there. But otherwise, like if she was going to replace the filter in there, all she has to do is unclip the hoses on here, those two hoses, and put it on the correct ones, which would be, I think, these two. There's an in and out, and then it goes back to the pond. So it's very easy to, if she can't get it to seal off with the existing one, as I mentioned, it might have to go with a new one. And you can see this one has a clamp on it, but it's otherwise it's very simple to replace. Since she already has the pump's already in the water, you can see the water's flowing, so you already got that part of it. You just need to fix the filter mechanism of it. So that's pretty much that. Well, that sums up this video. Hopefully I was able to help you out in understanding how your pond setup works. It is a fairly simple pond setup. As I mentioned, you just have your pump in the water and the filter on the outside. Just got to fix that kind of mechanism. Which should be fairly simple. As I mentioned, if that you're not able to fix it, you will have to replace the whole filter. So hopefully you're able to grasp something from this video. I did think making a video would be better than just me explaining in text, so that's why I decided to make this video. If I wasn't clear in the video, or if you're still confused a little, just leave a comment and then I can address that as well. Otherwise, this was different than other videos, so hopefully others can also gain something from it, and I do appreciate all the support, and thank you for watching.